Hello my people, welcome to African Electronic and welcome back to our series on Ableton Live. In today's video we'll be delving into section 4 of the Live Concepts from Ableton Live's reference manual. This section introduces some essential concepts that will help you understand the program's basic principles and allow you to fully utilize Ableton Live's potential for your music making. It is highly recommended to read this chapter before using Ableton Live. So let's get started. The browser is one of the key elements in Ableton Live. It's located on the left-hand side of the screen, as you can see over here. This is where you interact with your library of musical assets, including the core sounds installed with the program, additional sounds from Ableton Live packs, and your own presets and samples, and more. The browser is a powerful tool for finding and organizing your musical resources. As you can see on the top left-hand corner here, there's a section that says collections. These are collections that I've organized by myself, but we won't be going too much into collections in this video. In the middle section, you can see a section that says categories. And you've got all of these categories: sounds, drums, instruments, audio effects, MIDI effects, Max for Live. These are plugins, VSTs, or audio units on a Mac, clips, samples, grooves, and templates. And then you've got a section at the bottom that says places, which is where you've got your packs, user libraries, your current project, as well as folders that I have added myself here, which basically act as quick ways to access some of the resources that I have on my computer. And on the right hand side of the browser window is where you've got all of the devices or samples or audio effects shown as you click on the categories, places and collections. So Ableton Live functions by just dragging and dropping a lot of these instruments, audio effects, MIDI effects, plugins or samples. In Ableton Live, the documents you create and work on are called live sets. And live sets reside in a live project, which is a folder that collects all the related material from your set. You can open live sets either through the file menu's open command or directly from the browser. Understanding live sets is crucial for managing your projects effectively. Now, for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to open one of Live's templates. And if you go over to categories, click on templates, you can see a list of templates that I have here. Some of these come with Ableton Live, and some of them are templates that I created myself. So if you scroll over to where it says Demo and Sketch, this is a template that comes with your copy of Ableton Live. Just double click on it. And now we've got a template that's just been loaded up. And what you see here is what's called the session view. We briefly talked about this in the previous lesson. However, we're just going to briefly touch on the arrangement and session view again. The fundamental building blocks of Live are called clips. A clip can be a melody, a drum pattern, a bass line, or even a complete song. And Live allows you to record and modify clips, as well as create larger musical structures like songs, scores, remixes, DJ sets, or stage shows for performance. And these clips can be utilized in Ableton Live's arrangement and session view, which are the two environments that you'll be using Live with. The one you can currently see is the session view. And as you can see here, you've got your clips in the drum track. Next to that, you've got another track called keys, and then bass, and then vocals. And if we head over to the session view, you can see this view is empty, but you can see the corresponding tracks in a similar light as we saw in the session view. This is the arrangement view. So if we press tab, we can head over back to the session view. The tracks in Ableton Live host clips and manage the flow of signals, be it audio or MIDI. And as I demonstrated earlier, both the arrangement and session views share the same set of tracks, but they display them differently. Clips within a track can play alternatively in the session view, while in the arrangement view, tracks are stacked vertically with time moving from left to right. Let's explore how tracks work. So if I press play, you can see that I can only play one of these clips at a time in the session view. And this is a similar case when using the arrangement view. That is because these are sharing the same instrument in the same track. As you saw earlier, my arrangement view was empty, but I can actually record one of these or any of these clips into the arrangement view. And I do that by simply pressing the arrangement record button. Now, if we switch over to the arrangement view, press tab, you can see the clips have been recorded here. But you can see that they're grayed out at the moment, meaning if I press play, it's not playing the same sequence of clips that we recorded. Why is that? This is because it is playing the last clip that I played here, which is swing hip hop. It is playing the MIDI from the session view rather than from the arrangement view. And if I wanted to play the clips from the arrangement view, I would simply need to hover over to this red button here. This is the back to arrangement button. And when I click on this, the clips are no longer faded out here. So now if I press play, when I press play, you can now hear the sequence of clips that we recorded from the session view into the arrangement view. And if you wanted to record over the arrangement that you have at the moment, you can simply just go back, press record, and that's recorded over what you previously had in your arrangement, just for that section where you selected the new clip. And once again, you can go back to arrangement and you can see your clips in your arrangement view are no longer faded. What we've just been playing and recording from are what are known as MIDI clips. If I just double click on one of these, you can see the MIDI notes here. These are different from audio clips, although both MIDI clips and audio clips represent recorded signals. If you want to read up about the differences between an audio signal and a MIDI signal, then it's worth looking a little bit more online on this chapter. However, just to simplify it, audio signals are recorded sounds, while MIDI signals are symbolic representations of musical material. They are a sequence of commands, and they're closer to something like a written score than they are to a recording of audio. In Ableton Live, you can use instruments to convert MIDI signals into audio signals that can be heard. And audio signals are recorded and played back using audio tracks. And MIDI signals are recorded and played back using MIDI tracks. Let's have a quick look at the differences. So if we double click on one of these MIDI clips, you can see this is a representation of data and commands that tells Ableton Live to play a specific pattern or a specific sound. And these sounds are stored in your instrument. In this case, this is stored in what's called a drum rack, Ableton Live's drum rack. Another of Ableton instruments that plays drums is called Impulse. So depending on the version of Ableton that you're using, you either have both the drum rack and Impulse, or you might only have the Impulse instrument. And if I click on one of these, you can see that you've got your kick sample here. So the MIDI clip is telling Ableton Live to play this kick sample. And the MIDI is also telling Ableton Live to play this kick sample in a specific pattern and at specific velocity levels, i.e. intensity. As for audio, in Ableton Live we can record and play back recorded audio. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to quickly load in an audio sample just to show you what it would look like. So if I go over to samples, and I'm going to go to the finder at the top bar just above the browser and type in vocal. Now I've got a choice of vocals here. This came with my copy of Ableton Live Suite, so it would be the same for you if you've got Suite. Possibility. And just by clicking on one of these samples, I could hear a preview of the playback. Possibility. And if you can't hear this preview, you might need to toggle on the headphones icon here, which will allow you to preview any samples that you're going through, as well as some instruments. Possibility. Possibility. So let's go with this vocal demo possibility sample. I'm simply just going to left click on the sample and then drag while I'm holding the left click and release that click. And it's now placed it as a clip in session view on an audio channel. By the way, if you try to drag this on a MIDI channel, Live will give you this prompt here that says convert audio to MIDI, because this is an audio sample and not a MIDI sample. So we don't want to do that here, but this is something that you can do. For example, if you want to drag in a drum loop, Live will allow you to convert that into MIDI. And in this case, as you can see here, you've also got the options of converting audio material using harmony, the harmony algorithm, melody algorithm, or drums, depending on the material that you're utilizing. But we don't want to do that, so we're just going to press on cancel here. And if I double click on this audio sample that I just loaded up, you can see here, that's the audio wave represented on the timeline. And I could also press play. You heard there Ableton did something that's called warping. This is a topic that we're going to talk about a little bit later, where it basically syncs up whatever audio you dragged in with the tempo of your project or the tempo of your song. Right now we are working at 74 BPM, which leads us to the section on audio clips and samples. An audio clip in Ableton Live contains a reference to a sample or an audio file. Live allows you to play samples in an exciting way without altering the original file. So what's happened here, as I dragged it in and it's done this warping, is non-destructive to the original file. It simply does this in real time within Ableton Live. So don't worry too much if your loop or your sample gets mangled in any way, or it's chopped up, or you chop it up. It's non-destructive in that the original file that's wherever it is on your computer is not being changed. Live has this capability called warping, which allows you to synchronize sample loops to the chosen tempo and create unique sonic signatures that you heard with this vocal sample. It got changed quite a bit. We may not want to do something so extreme for vocal samples unless you're being creative. You feel free to do that, by the way. But this warping is also particularly useful when you want to work with drum samples and loops that are recorded at a different tempo. I'm just going to, by the way, in the track section here, mute this track for vocals so that we don't hear it, and I'm just going to right click, add an audio track, and I'm just going to drag in let's search for a drum loop in the browser here. Yeah, let's drag this one in. By the way, you don't always need to create an audio channel. If you want to do that, you can also just drag this into an empty space, and Live automatically creates an audio track for you. So I'm just going to delete that and only this loop. So over here you can see the original sample is recorded at 80 BPM, but Live automatically synced it up to 74 beats per minute just by dragging and dropping it. And if we wanted to, we can also increase or decrease the tempo, and it's going to, in real time, sync that audio up because this is warped. Just like that. It's very easy, very quick. And this here is what's known as the audio editor in Ableton Live. There are various functionalities that you can access through here, and we're going to quickly look at these soon. And if I go back to the MIDI clip in the drums track here, this is called the MIDI editor. And there are also other functionalities that you have here that are unique to MIDI clips in comparison to the audio clip. So let's close the detail view. In Ableton Live, tracks not only contain clips, but also a chain of devices. These devices are used for processing audio and MIDI signals. To access a track's device chain, simply double-click on its title bar and the device view will appear. As you can see, the device view displays the track's device chain, which consists of various effects and instruments. Ableton Live provides a range of built-in audio effects, MIDI effects and instruments, which can easily be added to tracks by dragging them from the browser into the device view. So if we go over to keys, and scroll over to audio effects. Let's remove, because we'd written drum loop over here. We've got all of our audio effects that come with Ableton Live Suite over here. If we wanted to add a delay to the keys, we simply scroll over to delay, and we can just left click and drag it, and it's been inserted. Alternatively, if I just click and delete, we can also just double click on the delay effect while the track is selected, and that also adds whatever device we're trying to add. And we can add an infinite number of effects in our chain. However, this is limited by your computer's performance specifications, so just bear that in mind. Additionally, you can use plug-in devices in Live, such as VSTs and audio units plugins, which are available in the browser's plugin label. So in the same way, I can simply just left click and drag this onto an empty space in session view, and Live automatically creates a MIDI track with this instrument loaded up. And similarly, if I were to create a MIDI track, an empty MIDI track, I can also drag and drop the instrument into my device view. This also works if you want to replace the instrument with another one. I can simply just either double click while the MIDI track is selected, or drag and drop. And similarly, you can add audio effects in the devices view. Now, let's talk about how these devices process the audio and MIDI signals. Imagine an audio clip playing in an audio track. The audio signal from the clip enters the leftmost device. In this case, I've got a utility device here, and then it goes through the next device in the chain, which in this case is the EQ8, and then it passes on to the next device. I've got another utility here, and this process continues until the signal reaches the end of the chain. So if I were to add a drum bus to this drum loop, and then a filter delay, the signal continues on all the way to the end of the chain, and then it comes through this mixer section over here, where it then can be sent to my return tracks through these send knobs. And then finally, leaving here, it goes to the master, also known as the stereo bus. As I mentioned earlier, it's important to note that the number of devices per track is theoretically unlimited. However, your computer's processor speed imposes practical limitations on the number of devices that can be used simultaneously. So if you use more devices, that's going to be greater on your CPU load, which can impact your system's performance. And the way to check what's going on with your CPU load is over here, where it says 4% at the moment. You'll find it going up towards the 50 to 100 when you're using lots of devices. But you can also look at this. This is something that was newly added to Ableton Live 11. It's sort of the performance section per track, which helps you monitor, because before you'd kind of be trying to guess which device is causing the sort of CPU load or spike. But nowadays, you've got this that tells you exactly what's going on per track. So if you find out, okay, this track has a large CPU load, you can go into that track and either freeze or flatten it, something that we'll talk about much later, or you can switch on and off different devices or replace the devices with ones that have a lower CPU load. And by the way, to activate this, if you can't see it, if you scroll over to the to the right hand side of the screen over here, you can see this little circle here that's got C on it, and this is how you show or hide the performance impact per track. This is really useful if you find that your computer is struggling. So while we're here, just above that you can see there is an X inside a circle over here, and this is the show or hide crossfader section. So if we just click on this, you can now see there's a crossfader on the master channel or stereo bus, and over here you can see these A or B, and these are switches that helps you assign the crossfade, A being the left and B being the right of the crossfade. So that's B, this is A. And this might look familiar to those of you who DJ or who've ever DJ'd. Of course, the center position means the whatever is assigned. Say, it was, I would assign these, so drums I assigned to A and the drum loop to B. If I was on the A channel, I'm just going to play this. You can only hear the signal coming from the drums track. But if I wanted, by the way, you can see the audio signal was being shown as green before, but now it's going into the red, and that's because it's doing something called digital clipping. You generally don't want to clip your audio like this. I'd actually because I added all of these devices here on this channel, the filter delay, the drum bass. These increase the volume of the audio and they started clipping. So generally that's an alert signal to tell you that, hey, you need to turn something down or remove something in order for your audio to be within the sort of, to be showing as green. So if I just play this again, now I've switched off. By the way, you can switch on and off your devices by simply clicking on the activator, device activator at the top here. So if I press play again, and that's what a crossfader does. It's a useful tool for those who perform live or DJ using Ableton Live. So in your MIDI tracks, you can add what are known as MIDI effects. So if we go to a MIDI track over here, let's go to the keys. I'm firstly just going to remove the delay I'd added before. I just clicked on it and pressed delete. And if I just arm record it by pressing on this little circle underneath the solo button, just left click. Now I've armed it, which means I can actually use either my computer keyboard or my MIDI keyboard to play the instrument. But if you don't have a MIDI keyboard, you can use your computer keyboard to play this. And in order to activate this function, in case it's not activated, make sure if you go to the top right hand of your screen, there's this little keyboard icon. And this activates, it switches your computer's keyboard to play notes, just like a MIDI keyboard would. So right now it's on. I'm just going to, I'm simply pressing the keys A, D, and G on my QWERTY keyboard. It's pretty cool, huh? So yeah, so going to this section, if I press just one key, I'm just pressing the A key, you hear one note. And as I did before, now I'm playing a chord known as a triad. However, in Ableton Live, you can use what are known as MIDI effects. And these are MIDI effects that come stock with your copy of Ableton Live. You've got, as you can see here, all of these selections of choices of MIDI effects. Arpeggiator, chord. By the way, bouncy notes, I think this one comes with if you've got Max for Live or Ableton Live Suite. I don't think you get that with standard as far as I'm aware. You've got all of these ones with this icon here, similar to Arpeggiator, chord. You've got the MIDI effects rack, so you can actually build racks with your MIDI effects as much as you can build racks with audio effects, but we're going to go into that later on. You've got note length, pitch, random, scale, and velocity, and the other ones with this icon are Max for Live devices. So anyway, I'm just going to demonstrate the MIDI effects using maybe just a couple or one or two of these MIDI effects. So how about if we load on chord first? So before, I pressed one key and it's just pressing A. And if I press 3 keys on my MIDI keyboard, and that forms a triad, which is a chord, a basic chord. Now, for those people that may not know how to play keys or know much about music theory, you can use these MIDI devices to help you out a little bit. And this is another thing that's really great with Ableton Live. So if I wanted to play the same triad that I played on my MIDI keyboard with 3 keys, I can actually do that by just pressing 1 key on my MIDI keyboard if I use this chord device. So now if I keep one of the notes on the root note, which is in this case A, and I'm going to shift the second MIDI note by 3 semitones, and then I'm going to shift the other one by 7 semitones. By the way, if you don't know too much about music theory, don't worry too much about this. I'm just using it for demonstration. Now, if I just press 1 key, the A key on my MIDI keyboard, listen to this. I'm literally just pressing 1 key, the A key, and it's playing a triad. It's playing a chord as if I'm pressing 3 keys. What this MIDI effect is doing is just telling Ableton Live to convert the single note that I'm playing into a chord. And it's a very useful device for people out there that, you know, might not know too much how to play keys or might not know too much about music theory. You can experiment with this. Yeah, it's a really, really useful tool, even if for people that know how to play keys and stuff. And if you want to play live, these are useful tools that can help you sort of, you know, be able to use, you know, if you're someone that plays live with your computer, you can simply use this to help you out a little bit so that you can have your hands free to modulate some of the other parameters while you play your keys just with one hand. If you can play a chord with one finger, isn't that great? The other device I'm going to load on is the arpeggiator, just for demonstration purposes. So if I just switch off the chord device for now, I've just loaded up the arpeggiator, and if I press the A key, I'm simply just holding the A key. I wasn't pressing any other key. I also wasn't letting go and pressing it again. I was simply just holding it. And if I change the rate to 16ths, and that's what an arpeggiator does. And if I change the steps to 3, I'm literally just pressing the A key and holding it on my keyboard. Let's play the same chord that we did before. So I was just holding the chord, and if we didn't want to do that, and we want to do the thing that we're doing before by just pressing one key while playing a chord, we can simply just switch on the chord MIDI effect and then press the A key. And similarly, it's playing the chord, and then the arpeggiator is arpeggiating that chord into an arpeggio sequence. So yeah, Ableton Live really makes it easy for you to make music, as easy as possible. But it's just about getting familiar with the software and knowing your MIDI effects and devices, etc. Now, I'm not going to go too much into all of these tools and devices and effects, just because we're going to do that in later videos. So make sure you like and subscribe. Now let's explore the next section, which are presets and racks. Every device in Live can store and record specific sets of parameter values as presets. These presets become part of your user library and can be accessed across different projects. So if I go to user library, in my presets folder, I've got some presets that I'm either created or loaded up from somewhere else. I created this this Hoover Raver sound. So if I just right click and insert a MIDI track, I could have just dragged and dropped it as you saw earlier. I'm just going to delete these devices just so you're not too confused. Let me just duplicate this just so we don't need to keep deleting those. So if I just double click on this while selecting the track, it's loaded up the preset that I had in there, and I basically created this preset. It's a basic sort of, I'm sure it sounds familiar. By the way, if you want to see a video on how I created this preset, it's using Ableton Live's Drift. This is a new instrument that came out a few weeks ago with the update to Ableton Live version 11.3, the update, and it's a really, really nice synthesizer. It's quite simple to program, and it emulates analog synths. So Ableton actually has the analog instrument. However, that's quite it can be quite complicated to get to know and to use it. So they created this Drift synthesizer, and it's got some great functionality. I definitely like it a lot better than analog. I'm going to upload a video showing me making this sound. So if you want to check it out, make sure you subscribe. So yeah, this is a classic rave sound. You might have heard it in loads of rave records, particularly in the sort of early to mid 90s. Okay, I just played as a chord there, maybe not. So after I created this, I actually saved it as a preset, which is why it appears in my user library here. And you can save presets of pretty much any device in Ableton Live, whether it's an instrument, whether it's a audio effect, MIDI effect, drum racks, audio effects racks, instrument racks, and you can even create instrument racks using third-party plugins, for example, and save those in your user library, which can be a quick way to kind of organize all your favorite sounds or all the sounds that you create. Similarly, you can do that with audio effects, including third-party audio effects if you put them in a rack, for example, and then you can have your collection that makes your sound, and you can access these across different projects like I've just done. I've just dragged and dropped this in. I did mention that I created this sort of basic Hoover sound, and I actually also created this as a rack with sort of different processing and effects. If I can find it, instrument rack. So over here, so I'm just going to go to the next MIDI track. Double click on it. Here's the drift preset that I created. And then I've got an auto filter here. And then I've got some reverb. So I just loaded up. I just clicked on one of these presets and it loaded up this whole instrument rack. So if I press, the A key on this sound, you can hear sounds different to this. It's because this has reverb and this sort of auto. If I switch these off, sounds exactly like the one I loaded up before. And then if I add the auto filter, and then if I add some reverb, you can hear that tail at the end, isn't it? So yeah, so you can literally just do that, and as I mentioned, you can also do that. Create these racks with third-party VSTs. So say for example you had, one of your favorite plugins, synthesizer plugins, and then you can also mix it up by having third-party effects or Ableton Live's own effects. And in order to create a rack and save it in this way, you can simply just, for demonstration purposes, I'm just gonna load up, say I loaded up drift, and then say I loaded up auto filter, and then I changed around the settings a bit. I'm not gonna play this, I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. Say I added a bit of echo and some hybrid reverb. So now I've got my instrument here, and I've got 3 effects. Now I can simply just select all of them. So make sure the last one is selected here, and simply press Shift and select all of them, and right click, go to where it says group. The other shortcut, if you're in Windows, is Control G, and I think on a Mac is probably Command G or something. I'm not sure. I use Windows, as you can see. So it's grouped all of the instrument and the effects, and then after doing that, you can then, if you scroll over to the bottom here, so bottom left of the instrument rack, you can see the section here that allows you to save the little sort of disk icon. So if you left click on that, now it's gonna let me save this. So I'm just gonna say live reference manual demo. I'm just doing this for demonstration. So, and then press enter, and that's there, and you can load this up. Once again, like we did before, if you just dragged and dropped it in an empty space or in a MIDI track or MIDI channel. Yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much it. You can do the same. Similarly, you can do this for drums. You can do this for effects. Just like if you just wanted only effects without an instrument, you can also group those and save those as a preset. Yeah, so Live is powerful for that. Great for organization, which can allow you to be a lot more creative, without needing to think about where that favorite sound was. You just have it saved in your user library. Now, on to the next section, which is routing. What is routing? Routing is a fundamental aspect of Ableton Live's flexibility and creativity. It determines where the signals from tracks are directed. In Live, you can set up the routing configurations in the mixer's in-out section, which acts as a virtual patch bay. So I'm just going to scroll to the right hand side of the screen. I'm just going to hide the crossfader, by the way, and I'm going to hide the performance impact. So if you scroll over to the top of this little section of buttons, there's the one at the top that says I/O. This is a button that you can toggle to show or hide the mixer's in and out section, where you can set up routing for track signal sources and destinations, really. So if I just press on this, you can see now I see a lot of these options here that have appeared above the mixer. And by the way, before I get to that, if sometimes you might have your mixer hidden, so it might be like this, but that's because the show hide mixer session is either toggled on or off. So over here you can see all the routing options that you have. You can see on the MIDI tracks I've got this section that says MIDI from. You can actually route MIDI from one channel to the other. That means if you've got MIDI data, either recorded MIDI data playing from one of these MIDI tracks, it can actually trigger the other track and the other instrument basically to play the same MIDI data, which is pretty incredible. So you can do that for as many MIDI tracks as you like, which can allow you to trigger multiple different instruments or sounds using just one MIDI clip or a collection of MIDI clips from one track. And you can also play live. So say for example you were you had this one track armed. Now you can also get the MIDI, you can also route the MIDI so that several other tracks are playing whatever you are playing in this one single track. So if, for example, if I go into this track here, track 7, Dirty Pulse, and I say I get the MIDI from track number 6. Now when I play the my keys, I just press A. Now you can see only the track number 6 here has any audio coming out. But if I then go back to track 7, see I've selected MIDI from Prophet 6, I need to select the monitor option here. If I toggle in, now listen. It's actually being triggered by the single note that I'm pressing from the track number 6, and you can hear that sequence because if you recall, we added the chord and the arpeggiator MIDI effects. The only one that's armed is track 6, and this one's taking a bit of time to play. I don't know why there's that small lag. It may be to do with the instrument, or it may be to do with latency. I'm not entirely sure on that one. Yeah, or there may just be a delay on the. There may just be a delay in the envelope, but we're not going to talk too much about that at the moment. So yeah, so I mean, you can be as creative as you like, and it can sort of save you needing to be able to have multiple MIDI keyboards. And similarly, as I showed before, so if I just drew a MIDI note here, and I pressed press play. Let's switch the devices on. So as you can see here, this is clipping again. Do you see that? For now, I'm just going to add on my master channel just a limiter, just to sort of control that a little bit. So we've just, we've covered a little bit of MIDI routing. You can also route audio to different channels. So as you can see over here in the ins and outs section, all my audio is going to the master channel. And this one here, the MIDI, there's an empty MIDI channel at the end. It says no output because there's no instrument loaded up in that MIDI channel. You can actually route your audio to other channels. So say we added a new audio track. We could say, for example, okay, let's route the drums to this number 12 channel, and these two channels. And now when we press play, you don't hear anything because this channel here on the monitor is off. So if I press, or if I toggle the in button, now we should be able to hear. And what this can allow you to do, it can allow you to do many things to sort of organize your tracks. So say, for example, you had your drums, you can route those into a sort of a drum, a single channel just for drums, and then you had your bass or your basses, and you can create an audio track and route those there. And then you had your synths, and then you can create a sort of, a submix, or what in sort of, I guess, old school ways of mixing, that can be called a bus channel. You can bus that into one channel where you then have control of processing the entire sort of the collection of all of those elements in that one channel. It can be useful in that, but actually Ableton Live allows you to also group tracks. So you might not need to create separate batch channels. Some people do it because it's the preference of people that perhaps grew up utilizing hardware mixers. But if I just delete this audio channel I created, I'm just gonna reroute these to the master channel. Yeah, it's back to this, right? In Ableton Live, you can also just group these, by the way. So if I just select and hold shift and select on the other one, while they're highlighted, just right click, and as we did before, we remember how we grouped those instruments. You can just group tracks. So other shortcut in Windows is Control G, and now these three have been grouped, and they're now being routed, as you can see, audio to number 5 group. They're now being routed to this group channel, and you can you can rename it. Right click and rename. Let's call this beat 1 or whatever, and then yeah, now the name here is changed, so it can help you with organization. And I can just the reason you can hear that drum beat is because that's not grouped. That's just coming from this drums channel. Remember, from this drums track that we initially had in the template, and then we added these ones. So if we just play this, and we can and you can control the sort of volume levels here together. send the entire group to a return track, and you can also process it together. So if we wanted to add, let's just add this erosion. This is basically processing this whole group. So it's created basically a submix. And, it's a useful way of sort of organizing your tracks and sort of routing them so that you can process them as groups or etc. You can also fold your groups, by the way, because we created a group in Ableton Live. So, if you had a lot of tracks in your group and you wanted to be able to visually sort of see the others, you can just like close the group, or you can just fold the group like this. It's really useful. So on to recording new clips. One of the essential features of Ableton Live is the ability to record new clips directly within the software. Both audio tracks and MIDI tracks can record their input signals, allowing you to capture your musical ideas on the fly. So of course, if you want to record MIDI data, use a MIDI track. And if you want to record audio, for example, a vocal or you playing a guitar, then use an audio track. So I'm just going to remove the Hoover basses here and the sort of reference track we had for effects for creating a group. I've kept an empty MIDI track, and I'm going to add an audio track. So if you wanted to record some MIDI, firstly, you arm the track that you want to record to. And, as I mentioned earlier, right now we don't have an instrument loaded up. So if I play my MIDI controller, you don't hear a sound. So let's load an instrument up. Let's go to a preset from Drift, pianos and keys. Let's load this Ballantine preset. So if I press... I'm just playing my MIDI keyboard. A unique thing about Ableton Live is you can literally just be playing in the session view non-stop and record as many sort of takes or parts as you like without it being destructive, or you can record over those sections. It's really great. I guess some people call it live looping or something, but if you catch yourself in that creative moment, you don't ever have to press stop. So say I was just listening to this. I'm just turning the volume up for the sort of keys I just added. I'm just playing using my MIDI keyboard. I'm just literally playing the key A, C, E, E, C, A, A, C, E, E, C, A. Yes, so I basically recorded 3 clips here, and all I was simply doing was just playing my keyboard, and when I got to a sort of section that I thought, okay, I want to record the next clip, I would simply just scroll over, quickly press the record button on that section, just like here while it was playing, and then I would keep recording, and then I would do the same and just go to the next one. And Live can allow you to do that. You can take as many gaps as you want, whatever. And if I just click on this clip, you can see this is what I was playing basically. If I just play it back. And if I go to the next one, and if I go to the next one, yeah, these are pretty much all the parts that I played in. And excuse, of course, some of them are a little bit out of time because of sort of, you know, Ableton Live's, or rather, some of them are a little out of time because of the latency issue. Right now, I'm running the screen recording software. I'm routing the audio through another program, and so there's a bit of a latency issue. Hence the some of the notes. I try to be as time as possible, but you know that kind of happens. But you know, in Ableton Live, you can do this. You can actually record stuff that's already quantized when you're playing it in, or you can just use the sort of what's called quantizing. We're going to go through that a little bit later, to be honest. But just to quickly show you, so if I just selected, for example, some of these notes and I right-clicked, I can just go to quantize, and that basically quantized it. And now it's going to... But we're just going to undo that just for now, just because, you know, we'll just keep it as it is. You know, you may want to do that as well. You may want to quantize, and you can mess around with quantize settings, but as I mentioned, we'll cover that much later. So yeah, so I've just recorded some MIDI on a MIDI track using my MIDI controller. You can also use your computer keyboard, as I mentioned earlier. The other thing that we can do is record audio. Now, in order to record audio, you will need an audio interface. If you don't know what that is, make sure you check out my other video, which will be linked in the comments section. And it just takes you through what you need to start making music on a computer. We cover audio interfaces and sort of the different types to look out for when you're looking for them, but you need an audio interface that's got an input where you can plug in, for example, your microphone, or a cable, a line that's going from whatever instrument you're playing, whether it's a guitar, a synthesizer, a keyboard, or whatever other instrument that you play. So an audio interface will allow you to sort of, you know, convert the signal and get your computer to record it. Let me just see if I'll be able to route my audio in here and record it because I hadn't set it up. So voice meter. So generally speaking, you know, if you've got your audio interface here, make sure your inputs are configured so that you can route the audio that's coming from your instrument or your microphone into Ableton Live, and then all you need to do really, if, you know, for example, this was armed, right now there is no input signal, but in the same way that I did it for the other one, say, you know, the audio was playing, so yeah, so say I was singing into the microphone, what would be happening now if my audio was configured? I'd be recording whatever I was saying or singing in my microphone or playing on another sort of external instrument. And this would have been recorded here, and you know what we see, I think because I'm using this routing program, it basically just recorded whatever was coming out from my session of Ableton Live in here. but this would basically be whatever you were playing through your audio interface, and you'd be able to sort of manipulate it or do whatever you wanted with it once it was recorded. So yeah, just I guess for this section, just make sure you know how to arm your recording, which are these little round buttons here that turn red when they're armed. And for MIDI, make sure your MIDI controller device is set up properly if you're using one of those, but once again you can use your computer keyboard. And for audio, make sure your input settings are set up properly, which you can set up in your options and preferences, or if you scroll over here and go to configure, it will take you straight to the menu where you can configure your audio settings and preferences, and in this section at the bottom, this should allow you to sort of select which channel. So for example, at the moment I've got an audio interface that's got two inputs, so it's got input 1 and 2, which are, if you see 1 and 2 like this, these are mono, and then 1, 2 together, that's a stereo input. Generally, if I'm recording stuff from my microphone, it's going to be mono, of course. And if I'm recording stuff from an instrument like a synthesizer or something, I use whatever setting that I require at that time. So this is recording in session view, and you can also record in the arrangement view, just like here. In a similar way, you arm the track and then you use the arrangement record button at the top, and this will simply record whatever you're doing in the arrangement section in sort of left to right or horizontal sequences we can see here. But some people are comfortable just doing all their work in the arrangement view from beginning to end, whereas some people like to use the session view, get the ideas here, and then record those things into the arrangement view. And these new clips that I recorded, by the way, I can also do that by using the arrangement record function, and then sort of play these, press play while it's recording there, and then these clips will be recorded at whatever section that I press play. Yeah, so I guess it's kind of like a modular way of working. Like Ableton can be quite intuitive like that, but the main thing is getting to know your software and how to use it, how it works, etc. And if you're wondering as well, like what if I'm out of time, etc. So currently, if you look on the top left-hand corner of the transport section here, it says 1 bar at the moment. And this is basically play and record quantization. So this is the menu. And if you click on this, you can select whatever sort of, however many bars or the fractions of those you need to help you avoid any sort of rhythmical errors when playing clips. And this can also be used when using Ableton Link, where you're sort of, using multiple machines, or you're playing with other people linked up to you who are also using Ableton Live. So yeah, it's a nifty little thing. You can use something called session recording here, where if you activate this, you can, for example, add things to your drum pattern if you're playing on a drum pad or MIDI controller. So if we just arm this track, the drum track, so I'm just using my MIDI controller to play this perk. So say we wanted to add a bit of add a bit of percussion to what we have so far. So if we just play this back, so yeah, say we wanted to add like a perk rhythm like that. Right now we're just playing it and it didn't record anything. We're just trialing out. If we activate this session record button, so I just played that in on top of what was already in the clip. And if you notice there, because things were a little bit out of time because of the latency that I've got on my computer at the moment, recording all of this for you, I quickly just selected all the notes, and I pressed the shortcut key on my Windows computer, Control U, and it quantized the notes that I played in so that they're more in time. And immediately I had a really nice perk rhythm, and it added to the whole groove of the track, just like that. And by the way, this is, I'm sort of just doing this on the fly for you, just to show you what it's like to utilize Live and, make music whilst we go through the menu. So, this isn't meant to be some sort of, hit record that I'm making. It's not practiced. It's not any of that. Literally, even this whole session is unplanned. I'm just going through the manual and reading it. So back to Live Concepts. Let's discuss automation envelopes. When working with Live's mixer, effects, instruments, etc., you often want the controls, movements to become an integral part of your music. This is where automation comes in. Automation is the movement of a control across the arrangement's timeline or within a session clip, and is represented by breaking point envelopes. So we've kind of got a little thing that we've been making here. Now I'm just going to record this into our session view. So previously we had, sort of for demonstration purposes, we had this little sequence here in our arrangement view. However, I'm going to record what we have over that instead. So if I just press on the arrangement record button, it should record over what we had before. Before I do that, I just want to mute the percussion and use that as a variation of the drums. So if I just click on the key and select and press 0 on my keyboard, that basically is a shortcut for muting them. So let's record now. Yeah, so we basically just recorded 8 bars. If we go over to the session view, and remember, the reason that they're sort of grayed out or faded out like this is because this is playing from the clip view. So we can just click on the back to arrangement button here, and we're not really using the vocals, so I'm going to delete this. Open up the beat here. We can see our beat. We can see what we're playing here, the MIDI data. So I'll just sort of so I can see I have more space. We can see the drum loop here, and we can see over here the MIDI data. So remember, initially the part I played, I'd muted the perk that we added, and in the so that's for 4 bars, and then the next 4 bars I activated that. I just pressed 0 on my keyboard while this was playing and recording, and that's been added there. Let's see if so the timing is, I think, slightly off just because of the latency issue, so I'm just going to drag this. Yeah, everywhere else is fine. So yeah, let's quickly play this back. So what I just did there, I just moved the loop marker, the loop end marker, to the end of the 8th bar here, and the loop was already active here. So that's how you activate the loop if you wanted to sort of, it to loop over a certain section. Sorry, I just wanted to show the automation. That's what I'm wanting to do here. So if you wanted to automate a parameter, so say, for example, we want the volume to gradually increase for this sound here from the Prophet. Because it starts off at sort of the sort of maximum sort of volume that we have it set at. So we could just automate the track volume, for example, over here. Now if I was doing this sort of manually or live, so that's the type of effect that we want. Now, there are two ways we can do this. Either we can just record what I was doing by pressing on the record button here whilst the automation arm is selected. And you'd want the MIDI arrangement overdub as well, so that it doesn't end up replacing all the MIDI data. Or we could just draw it in. So for the purpose of this, I'm just going to draw this in. So you can simply just show the automation by right clicking somewhere and then show automation. And now that shows all the automation on all the channels basically. That's how you activate that. And then I'm just going to click on a breaking point here. Turn the volume, click on another one at the beginning, turn the volume right down, and then I think it went all the way up here. What I've just added is automation, and I'm automating the track volume for this. And that's automation for you. And you can also, so if we go to our Dirty Pulse sound over here, we can basically automate any parameter. If I wanted to, I could automate the arpeggiator to come on and off. But let's just maybe play around with the filter. Okay, that makes a nice sound. So for this one, I'm going to record that live. So what we need to do first is to wait. So as I mentioned before, make sure your automation arm here is turned on. Otherwise, you won't be able to record the automation if you're doing it using a MIDI controller, your mouse, to move some parameters. So, and by the way, you can also assign this to control on your MIDI controller. If you've got a MIDI controller with faders or knobs, you could do that. But I'm just going to use my mouse for demonstration here. So if we go back to the beginning, pressing stop, and then we're going to press maybe let's start a bit lower than it is, and then we'll press record. So I'm going to automate this filter cutoff. Okay, so I recorded a little bit at the beginning there because it's looping, but I'm just going to move this. Okay, So, okay, and I'm just going to edit this. So as you can see, I can even edit after I've recorded in. And that's how you record automation in the arrangement view. So for this, I was using automation lanes in the arrangement view. Practically, all mixer and effects controls and lives can be automated. You can even automate the song tempo here. If you had a section that changes tempo, you can automate that. And as I showed, it's very, very straightforward to record automation. Something else to pay attention to is if I move a parameter, say the filter cutoff here, and then I press play. It's no longer following the automation. You might be shocked. Oh no, have I overridden something? What's happened? Have I lost all this work that I've been doing recording automation? Not really. You just simply need to reactivate or re-enable automation. And if you scroll over to the top here, next to the automation arm, is this little arrow that's pointing to the left. When you see in this red color, it means that it is no longer playing, or the automation that you recorded in some part or in all parts may not be maybe disabled. So you simply need to re-enable it by clicking on this. And now you see it's no longer grayed out anymore. If I press play from this section, the automation is back. So yeah, just pay attention to that and make sure, you know, you're sort of paying attention to both this re-enable automation button as well as the other button that appears would be if you're no longer playing the clips from the arrangement view and you need to re-enable. Envelopes can be found in both tracks and clips, and they are used to automate or modulate device and mixer controls. In addition to that, audio clips have their own clip envelopes to influence the clip's pitch, volume, and more. What does this mean? So if we go back to the session view, and we are just going to duplicate the drum loop that we have. So it moves it to the next section. I'm just going to drag and drop this a little bit lower, just so I know which one I'm working on. And if I double click on this audio clip, you can see over here on the left hand side of the clip view, you've got a section that says envelope. So if I just click on the little arrow, that opens up a section over here. And it already said like mixer, beat delay, just because I was, I think the last thing I used in this track was the delay. So if I just change this to, for example, track volume, I can automate the track volume here, and that would actually influence the volume that I hear from this clip. So if I just solo this by pressing on S, and I obviously need to play this. In case you didn't hear that, I'm just gonna make it more drastic. See, it basically turns down the track volume. So if I just undo this, and you can also use sort of clip controls, which are probably the things that you might use most when doing stuff like this. And this controls the gain, and that does an almost similar thing. So, you know, if we do this, without affecting your track volume, because you might need that for mixing later. So just keep that tip in mind. You can also transpose. Okay, so if you want to do some mangling and warping or whatever, let's play this. So you can mangle your audio like that, which is pretty fun to do. Or you can also control whatever devices you have. So what do I have on this channel? So if I just double click on the track name, I've got this filter delay. What does it sound like if I just switch it on? Okay, so it sounds like this. So say I wanted to mess around with how much delay is going in. If I turn it all the way down. Okay, I'm just going to use the left and right one here, just for simplicity. Yeah, so I've just moved this a little bit. It's going when I go into the clip, it's already going to show that parameter here, because that's the last one that I touched or moved. And I can simply just let's see, let's automate that. Okay, now let's play this back. And that's a great way to sort of, make loops your own by automating and modulating different parameters. And then similarly, if we look at these little keys that we added earlier, so I just copied one of them, and similarly, we've got the envelope section in the MIDI clip view. You can see here there's automation, there's modulation. What have we got here? So we've got this device. If we just play, I'm just going to solo this and play it. Let's see what we can automate. Okay, let's use the frequency. So because it's the last one I moved, it's already showing here. Let's maybe open it up, close it a little bit, open it there. Okay, so let's play it with our other instruments. So I'm just showing that for demonstration purposes, but you can see you can add movement to your music using automation, using modulation, whether it's in arrangement view or within the clips themselves. And yeah, clip envelopes give you the power to transform the melody and rhythm of recorded audio. For MIDI clips, you have additional clip envelopes to represent MIDI controller data as well. And what's great about clip envelopes is that they can be unlinked from the clip, allowing you to have independent loop settings. And this means you can superimpose larger movements or smaller gestures onto the clip's material. So, this isn't something that I'm going to go too deeply into. I just want to move into the next section, which is MIDI and key remote control. So Ableton Live provides a way to, what they say, liberate musicians from the mouse by allowing most of Live's controls to be remote controls via an external MIDI controller, or in some cases, your keyboard. This is done through MIDI map mode. In MIDI map mode, you can assign any mixer or effect control to a controller by simply sending the desired MIDI message, such as turning a knob on your MIDI controller box. Once you leave MIDI map mode, your assignments take effect immediately. Session clips can also be mapped to MIDI keys or even a keyboard range, allowing for chromatic playing. So to map your MIDI controller, if you just hover over to the top right of your screen, toggle the MIDI button, and you can see some of these elements go blue, and anything that's blue can be mapped to your MIDI controller. So if I wanted to map, say, the sort of belly sound we had to sort of a function of my MIDI controller, I can just select that, click on it, left click, and then I just moved a knob on my MIDI controller. I'm using an Arturia Keylab 61 MK2, I believe. Could be MK3. No, it's MK2. And now I'm going to hover over and press the MIDI button again. That means it's been mapped. So I'm just moving the knob, the rotary knob on my controller now. And as you can see here, it's controlling the knob to send to the vocal hall return channel. And you can do that for most controls in Ableton Live. And if I wanted to delete that MIDI map, I just press on this MIDI button and I can just hover over to the left hand side here, MIDI mappings, left click or right click, left click, and then press delete on my keyboard, and that's been removed. That knob is free again to be mapped anywhere else. And you can also map, of course, the same knob to control multiple parameters, and they're actually deeper controls within that MIDI mappings, but we're not going to go too much into that at the moment. So you can also map session clips, switches, buttons, and radio buttons to your computer keyboard keys. And this can be done in the key map mode that you activate using this key button here next to the MIDI button. So if you just click on this, as you can see, whatever is mappable has now turned red. So if I wanted to play, for example, if I go to the Bellatine sound, the key sound, and I select one of these, left click, and I press the letter 6 on my keyboard, and then if I come out of the key mappings, and if I press 6, it automatically started playing that. And once again, I can just go here, select key 6 in the key mappings, delete, and then the number 6 is free now. And yeah, so I can pretty much map, if I wanted to turn devices on and off, I can map them to my computer keyboard or my MIDI controller. And yeah, this can pretty much be done with most things, allowing you to sort of, use your external gear to control as much of live as possible, whether you're in your studio or you're performing live. It makes the experience a lot more hands-on and intuitive. And yes, so finally, we're on to the saving and exporting capabilities of Ableton Live. So when you save a live set, it saves everything it contains, including clips, their positions, settings, devices, and controls. So if I scroll over to the menu section, click on File, and Save Live Set. So over here, I'm just going to save it in this live project, African Electronic Demo, save, and then it's been saved there, and save live set is now off. But if I make any change, say I mute and unmute, it's gonna allow me to just save live set again, because I've made a change. So make sure you're saving quite regularly. However, also be aware that an audio clip can lose its reference to the corresponding sample if it's moved or deleted from the disk. So say this audio loop that I used, say I were to delete it from my hard drive, when I open up my live project, it's going to ask, it's going to tell me that it's missing some samples because it can't find that sample. However, what you can do to avoid that, especially if you're using, your own loops or samples somewhere else, that, you might lose or delete by mistake. If you go to File and then Collect and Save, this will allow you to specify which media that you've used is going to be copied into the project folder, which keeps things organized and which also ensures that, if it makes a copy of that loop or audio, it's going to be stored in that particular project. So if that file that you may have used initially gets deleted or moved somewhere, Live isn't going to bug out when you load it up and that sample is no longer where it was before. So yeah, you simply just do this and then select whatever else you want, whether it's files from other projects elsewhere, user library, or files from even Ableton's factory packs, and then you just press OK, and it basically copies all those files into that project folder. So I'm not going to do that for this, but this is also a very useful way to save if you're working collaboratively with other artists. Say you're working with other producers and you're sending the projects between each other. What may happen sometimes is because you've used some sample that's located somewhere else on your hard drive and you just send the project file without doing that, they might open it and then not find that sample because they don't have that sample in their computer, or stored in that exact location, etc. This will save you a big headache if you work with other people on projects. But I wouldn't do that all the time, just because it's going to take up your storage if you're collecting and saving for any project, including ones you haven't finished, etc. So be sort of choosing how you use that. But if you've got unlimited amounts of memory, which is very few people in this world, then by all means go ahead and do that. And in some instances, when you do move stuff, Live also has a function to kind of help you look for that file, but we're not going to go through that in this video. Now, in addition to saving the live set, you can also save default clip settings along with audio samples using the save button in the clip view. This is especially useful if you've made specific warp settings for a clip and want to use it in multiple live sets. Let me show you what this means. So I've got this random sort of audio that I recorded earlier. So say I sort of turn down the audio, turn down the gain here, and then I pitch it up, and then I use a different warp setting, and then I messed around with the envelope, say transposed it here, blah blah blah. Now say I'm like, okay, I like the way it sounds and I want to be able to load this up with all these changes. I can simply just go on this little button here that says save default clip. This will save the clip settings with its sample file, and whenever you drop this audio file into Live, Live is going to remember these settings. And it's not destructive, so it hasn't changed your audio file. These are just settings it remembers when you load it up. So don't worry too much about doing that, or that you've done that. And what you can also do is you can also, so if I click on this, it's basically save the settings. So, you know, if I drop that in, it will basically load it up with this. But you can also save this as a clip, you know, if in your user library. So I've got my clips here. You know, these are sort of my folders that I created myself. So if you wanted to create a folder, by the way, just like right click, new folder, demo, and then I can just drag this into here, and then I can call it demo 1 or whatever, and then that's kind of saved this clip with all the settings here. So I can also preview this, by the way. Yeah, so basically those are the changes I made basically, and it's been saved in my user library, where I can easily just access it whenever I'm working on different projects. And the great thing about Live is you can also do this with MIDI clips. So if you remember, I sort of messed around with this a little bit. I can also just save this, or by dragging and dropping. If you remember correctly, I, you know, moved the low pass filter around here, and you know, if I wanted to save it with all these settings, I can simply just left click, drag into my user library and just drop it, and then I can call it demo keys, and it's saved. And remember, over here I only have this instrument at the moment, so if I wanted to preview, I can just do you know what I did? I dragged the wrong one, so it was meant to be this one. Demo keys filtered. Okay. I don't know why it didn't. Let me just delete these and delete this one. Demo keys filtered. Let's see if it will remember. For some reason with this one it's not showing the automation, but let's try and just play it by itself. I just dragged it back in. Okay. So I just dragged a new track with the MIDI clip, and it's actually playing all the automation, the clip automation that I recorded. So I don't know why it doesn't show that in the preview here, yet it does for audio files. But you know, maybe that's just a bug or something. So yeah, so as you can see here, because I can save these clips, including with all the MIDI data and clip envelope data, etc., modulation, whatever, as well as the instruments. And by the way, if I had effects loaded up here, it would also save the clip with the track. So it would have the instrument, it would have the track effects that I have as well, which is pretty incredible. So if you've made a sound and you've added any processing or effects that you like, where it sounds amazing in a track, maybe you want to save it later on for another track, or maybe it doesn't fit the current one, or you just like it. If you just simply save it into your user library by dragging and dropping, you can then drag and drop it into whatever other project that you're working on, and it will have basically all the settings that you had saved with it, including the sort of clip automation and everything else. It's a great way to collect or create a library of sounds that you like, in addition to, maybe sequences as well. So definitely check that out. It's not something that's talked about a lot. You can do the same with drums. So if you had drum grooves that you like, or that you tend to use the most, then you can just save those in your user library as clips. Anyway, that wraps up our exploration of section 4, Live Concepts, in Ableton Live's reference manual. We've covered the fundamental and essential concepts of Live: the browser, live sets, arrangement and session view, tracks, audio and MIDI, audio clips and samples, MIDI clips and MIDI files, devices and the mixer, presets and racks, routing, recording new clips, automation envelopes, clip envelopes, MIDI and key remote, and finally saving and exporting. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there's a link in the description section. It will help me out a lot so that I can create more of these videos for you and make great music. This has been African Electronic. Peace.